Hey guys, this is Philip Pantana inside the Perimeter Roof and Renovate, and I've got some friends with me here today. I got Joe White, one of our top salespeople here at Perimeter, and I've got my wife Patricia, and we run the business together. And I'm excited to have some conversation about what it looks like to be married in business and working together with your spouse. So it's going to be spicy. We're going to get to some nitty gritty stuff, but really excited that Joe's on with us today because he's going to be our narrator. He's going to be our guy who's going to be hosting us at each of our podcasts and kind of helping guide the conversation with some questions and keeping the content fresh and relevant and exciting. So excited to have both of them on here today.
Great. Thank you for the intro. So kicking it right off, wanted to get into you guys. Obviously, you guys are married and you're in business together. A couple questions pertaining to that. What are some challenges you guys face being married and running a business together? I'm sure that can't be as easy as you think.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're fortunate because we never get into any fights. We never have conflict. The Lord has just blessed us with, perfect harmony.
And this is where I'm the straight shooter and cut that down and get to the point.
Yeah. I'm going to let Patricia kind of dive into that one. What do you think?
Yes. So it presents its challenges. However, what's interesting is at the end of the day, we go back to the fact that we are better together, like in every aspect. But we've had to learn that most of our areas that we're involved in, they really bleed into each other because we're part of leadership at our church. We lead a ministry team together. I lead a women's ministry. So there's a lot of different things that we talk about, and obviously our marriage, our family. And there's so many areas that have potential to kind of take over without having separation. And so we've had to have conversations in the last 5 months as I've entered my new role at Perimeter that have had to have clear boundaries on what we discuss and when for that purpose. So if we're home and the girls are home, it's got to be home time, like life. I can't talk about Perimeter 24/7. And so learning that we are better together, we complement each other really well in most areas, and learning that boundaries are very healthy for the fact that we want to have healthy rhythms. We want to be able to have separate roles and having that attention and having the discernment to know, hey, right now is not the time for this. We're going to focus on that. So it's a growing, evolving rhythm that we're finding, So I'm sure it's going to take time.
It wasn't always that clean. Like, we had to learn.
Yes.
We made some mistakes. We've
had some passionate conversations.
Yeah. We actually got fussed at by our kids a couple times. Like, hey, you guys are talking about work too much.
And that is your metric. That is your measure of how you're doing.
Yeah.
Your children are that KPI, I guess, using a business term, right? Key performance indicator. So literally your kids can look at you and say, hey guys, when we're here, you talk about Perimeter a lot.
Yeah.
Part of that is because I'm newly integrated into the role. And so everything is learning, everything is growing, everything is constantly changing. And so I'm in that conversation because I want to learn, but I've had to learn to pull back and say, okay, you know what? You're right. And we've given them permission to do that. So it helps keep us accountable.
We're both firstborns, type A,
yes,
highly driven, right? So we're still trying to figure out who's leading who.
Jesus is leading us.
Right. Yeah. That's our default, when we can't come to an agreement, it's all about understanding. Right. So, but yeah, there's been challenges. But I feel like we continue to improve in those areas, and we face the challenges to try to help each other succeed. That's the ultimate goal.
That's great. So kind of in that same vein, you sound like you guys are very busy, with work in the business, but also outside of that, running a family, being involved with church. How do you stay on the same page? Like, what do you guys do to stay connected during the week and avoid going off the rails?
I mean, we've tried to create some consistent rhythms. We have a same page meeting that is like a static once a week meeting. Sometimes we miss that because we're having conversations sporadically throughout the week. But our conversation will ebb and flow to different conversations, whether it's church and leadership, whether it's business, whether it's family. But yes, because of all of the responsibilities that we have, there's only a few moments that we have where we can chill. And we really try to take advantage of the times when we can disconnect. So going on vacation consistently as a family is a priority for us. Having some times where we can get away, right? Like getting out of Lynchburg just for the day, even whatever reason, like, you get in the car and start driving away and it seems like all of your responsibilities and problems are being left behind. So I think everybody feels that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, with that, because you're busy, you want to make sure that you integrate fun and rest into your rhythm so it keeps you balanced. And so, we've had a date night where it's like, let's not talk about anything but just being together, friends nights where you just hang out and do something fun, and so it's important to keep those a priority as well, family dinners or things like that that really breathe life into you, and give you that capacity to sustain what you've got going on,
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I have a story that comes to mind. So Trish and I were out on a date night. We were out on a date night. I think we had a steak or whatever, and we wanted to have some deep conversation, but we didn't want to go home. So we actually drove up on Liberty Mountain. And I guess, back in the day when we were in college, people would go up there to make out. So I think they policed that pretty well. So we went up there and we're having this deep spiritual conversation. And sure enough, a security guard comes over and knocks on our, I'm sorry, you can't be here. Come to find out, we know the guy. He goes to our church.
Yes.
Oh, no.
And we were like,
he showed us a little bit of grace.
Yeah,
like,
he
hey,
showed
take
us
your
some
time,
grace.
but
he was like,
need
yeah,
to
you got to go, like okay, we're so, so sometimes it can be, unpredictable.
Right. I'm sure that was one he was fun to tell a story of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Outside of the normal kids. So you guys touched on this earlier. Each of your guys' roles what does that look like? Are you both doing the same thing, tackling the same problems, or do you guys excel in different areas?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely complement each other. We're different people. We think differently, and we have our own lanes. Like the things that I enjoy are different than the things that Patricia enjoys and is naturally good at.
Mm-hmm.
And so our roles definitely complement each other, and that's been really good.
So ultimately, I would say, he serves in a role of visionary. He is a visionary. He can also be an integrator, but that's kind of what I'm slowly taking on. The day-to-day operations, the day-to-day integration into each division of our company and leading the people, and that is my sweet spot. So I really love that. That way he can be released to envision, to maybe do marketing, the things that he really enjoys. So we've learned a groove of how to basically lean on each other in our strengths, and then not necessarily calling out our weaknesses, but having those as an opportunity to grow and say, hey, I might not be really great at this area, but I'm willing to grow in it. So how do we sharpen that, in each other so we can become the best version, in our leadership role. So
yeah, Tricia, she definitely brings like an X factor when it comes to cultivating really healthy culture within the organization. She has these like Jedi Knight skills where, she can correct people without making, she can get her point across and you walk away feeling encouraged. Like, and I know exactly the areas I need to work on,
right.
But she can, she empowers people to do that. I tend to be a little bit more like straightforward, like, hey dude, like you need to get, this is the problem. And that works too. Sometimes you need that, right. But it's styles.
Yeah. And I think everybody responds differently to, your
Yes.
approach or your approach.
Right.
It just depends on the personality and the type of person.
And knowing how to approach that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would say that we both naturally are encouraging people. We love people. We want to see people succeed. Our heart is to see people be their best version of themselves. And so whenever we're approaching something, it's about, what is the win-win here and what is the right decision when we're investing in leading people.
That's great. This is going to be a great segue. Other than running a profitable business, how do you guys measure success?
So, we've been running Perimeter now for almost 9 years, and I have, as you operate a business, and I know a lot of business owners probably go through this same evolution, but you start your business with the intent of, hey, I hope we can just pay the bills and that we can succeed. But then eventually when you start seeing success, you have to start asking yourself, well, what are we really about as a company? And I really went through that process because I didn't have clarity about why does Perimeter exist beyond the services that we're providing.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're both people of faith and we know that our faith is influencing our thoughts and decisions, and ultimately it should help guide and direct our life purpose beyond just our achievements. I began asking that question: what do we want to be about, and what is it that what is it that's going to give us a greater purpose beyond just our daily grind every day?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I realized, okay, people are our best, are our most vital asset. And also learning from the mistakes that I've made as a leader over the last 9 years, I was able to say, hey, I don't want to do this again. This didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
How do I adjust the way that I'm leading? How do I adjust the way that I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
so that we can find that greater purpose? And ultimately, the thing that I repeat over and over again now is that we're a company that is all about helping people grow both personally and professionally. So the focus is, how do we invest in our people,
Mm-hmm.
and how do we pour into them? Because we'll get a really great rate of return if we're helping people be the best version of themselves. If we're not leading well with the people that are in our organization, how can we lead our customers with excellence, right? I feel like the measure in which we are investing in our people to be the team and the hands and the feet that are supposed to be going out and serving the community, there's a lid there. If we can't raise the lid on
Mm-hmm.
our leadership as a team, then it'll be limited on how that's reflected and received in the community and to our customers.
Yeah, I would say the answer to that question, I measure success by the impact I'm having in someone's life. Be that it's my leaders, the employees, maybe a sub that comes in, or, a customer that's stepping in, or outside of Perimeter. It's like, what kind of impact am I having in this person's life?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if I've seen a change in someone's behavior and thought pattern and the way that they do things, every day, and I see growth and I can measure that from the time that I've started investing my time and energy into this person's
Mm-hmm.
life to 3 months down the road, wow, I see amazing growth in your life. They might not see it because it's harder for someone to internalize that and say, wow, but I see that. That's how I measure success, So it's like, life is really it's not about the accolades you receive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the things that you're accumulating. None of that matters. It's the impact that we make personally on somebody else's life that actually affects them in a positive way. And they're left changed and transformed. And that's kind of the whole point of what we do, no matter if it's Perimeter or our family or our marriage or friends or church ministry, everything. It's the impact that you have that you can look back and measure.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, in like personal development for ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not, it starts with us. We have to lead ourselves well. We have to be willing to make the changes in our own life and learn from our own mistakes. And the measure in which we're vulnerable about the things that we struggle with and our weaknesses in the areas where we need to grow, that's really empowers us to lead other people.
Yeah. And remaining accountable, which is a huge thing, I think, in every area of life. We have leaders that are over us that we're accountable to. We have peers that speak into us business wise. I mean, we have a lot of accountability that's been set up so that we remain teachable, we remain humble, and we're continuing to develop, And so at the rate that I'm willing to grow is the rate that I'm going to take someone else with me.
Right.
And so I think that's super important.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you guys have a community outside of, your normal business.
Yes.
That are pouring into and kind of giving that reality check that you need when
Absolutely.
comes hardship or challenges, or even in the success, I'm sure. Um, Going beyond that, what is a kingdom-minded business that you guys run? What does that look like with your faith and running the business? I'm sure that's a big part of it.
Yeah. So for me, it's being bold and representing that no matter what you do, where you're at, who you're with. Meaning there's no, you know, there's no stop to where you're showing your faith. Like no matter where I'm finding myself, like in my leadership meetings every Thursday morning, I open with prayer and I'm intentional about, hey, Lord, we need your help. We need your guidance. We need your wisdom. We can't do without you. I'm super bold in how I express my opinion in something because the Lord cares about everything that I'm doing and what I put my hands to. And so it's being bold in expressing the fact that your faith is in the Lord. And that's how we want to run our business. And we're not shy about discussing it. We're not shy about expressing it. And we're not shy about letting someone know, hey, the Lord is the one that's given us this business and we want to steward it that way. And so it's going to be the framework. It's going to be the backbone. It's going to be the foundation that it's being built on. And so I think it's bleeding in every area, of the business. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the mindset that I came to is that this is not my business, this is God's business. And that paradigm shift really helps keep things into perspective. Like with anything in life, when we're entrusted with something, sometimes that thing that becomes valuable to us can pull us and become unhealthy. And so like with anything, you almost have to die to the dream. And that happened to me in the last couple of years. Just went through a lot of difficulty, both personally and in the business. Just kind of, it was sort of a transitional season for me. And I basically I died to the business. Like, I don't want this anymore. But then I realized that isn't my choice because God entrusted me with this business. And the marching orders I got were be faithful in stewarding what I've given you. And so you press in and you press through and you do everything to the best of your ability, despite your feelings.
Right.
And out of that comes new life because you're dying to something and then you're becoming this new person. It almost feels like you're having an out-of-body experience where you just keep moving forward and you're able to start walking in greater measures of faith because now this isn't my strength, this is his strength.
That's good. Yeah. You spoke on this earlier, Tricia, about being part of the leadership team at Perimeter. Obviously, we're in the construction industry, and that's a challenging industry, first off, for anybody, but especially being a woman and in leadership and running a business with Philip. What's that like? What are some of those challenges and things that you've experienced?
It's very interesting because everywhere I've been, as far as the business has been connected, it seems like it's a men run industry, right?
Yeah.
Because of the nature of it, right?
Yeah.
Although I've met and known of a few women that were sales, force in the company, or 4 men / 4 women, whatever. So I've seen that too, but it's very rare. So with that comes a bit of an opportunity to feel intimidated. But at the same time, I think knowing fully the role that you play and the skill set that's been given to you and the talents you have to work within the industry and really being confident in that really exudes. And I think it kind of has a paradigm shift, not in your own mind also, but also with others that you're leading. And so the way that you're really representing yourself with boldness and confidence, knowing, you know what, I'm not going to be around this table and pretend that I know everything because I don't. I'm new into the industry, so I'm learning and growing. But at the same time, I lead with confidence, knowing that I have the right people around me and I'm empowering and delegating them at the same time. And that builds confidence within them. Yeah. And so it's really the way that I lead myself and the way that I present myself, no matter where I'm at. I'm part of a C12 group, which is a Christian organization, and it's for accountability and lots of different factors. But I'm in a room full of 12 other men every month for a whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told this to other women that are in the business world, and they felt very intimidated. And they said, I don't know how you do that.
Mm.
I wouldn't be able to speak. And I think with that comes maybe some lies that we believe about ourselves as women, that we have some limited capacity to lead in a certain way because it's so many men around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a limiting belief. But I think that it has a lot to do with how you view yourself and how you carry yourself, and knowing your skill set and actually identifying what are your strengths in this and running with that and developing yourself to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she does a great job at that. She is a boss woman, and she carries herself very well. And the things that she just shared, you would never, unless she shared that with you, you wouldn't know that's what she was thinking and feeling at times. But Tricia is a very confident person, very capable, and does a great job at leading people. She's she's very good at solving problems. She's a great people manager.
Mm-hmm.
She knows how to handle conflict, and she's not afraid of it.
That's good.
And so, I have heard that, when Tricia sits around that round table with those 12 other guys like that, she carries her own.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that in a lot of ways she has great influence because, men, we can't live without women. Right. And so, yeah, she, I have learned to just, for the most part, do what I'm told, and then everything's good.
That's right. Going into kind of building that team around you talked about that, of encouraging yourself through the community that you have, not only outside of the business, but inside the business and other women in business. What kind of traits do you look for in those team members, whether you're trying to fill the seat on the bus at the business,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're trying to surround yourself with the right people
yeah.
to ultimately both succeed?
I would say a big part of that would be, are you not necessarily just a skilled person, but are you willing to learn? Are you teachable? Are you humble? Because you can come to the table and have a great resume,
Mm-hmm.
but you might not have the skill set to sustain maybe the teamwork part of having that job, because you don't have the right chemistry, because you're lacking maybe in self-development or something, or chemistry within the team. That's huge to me. So let's say we bring somebody on, but they're really lacking that factor of really being of the same mind and on the same mission. And so you're just not really gelling with anybody. That says a lot about you, right? So chemistry is very important. So when you meet someone and you have an interview, you can tell a lot about a person and the way that they engage, the way they communicate, the way they express themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say you can come with the greatest accolades, but I've seen a very skilled person come and submit themselves under the leadership and bring such tremendous value with such humility that's invaluable, right? So you can come to me and be arrogant and say, I'm so good at this and my resume reflects it and this and that, but there's so much pride in the way that they present themselves that when you execute, it doesn't quite bring the same kind of outcome. So it really affects the team, it affects the company, and then it becomes more of a toxic environment instead of actually part of a healthy culture.
Right.
So I think humility, teachability, you can work with someone that's willing to grow in their skill, right? You begin somewhere. You've done that.
Yes.
You've come brand new with knowledge, no prior knowledge of the industry, and then you've excelled because you were willing to learn and you're always wanting to learn, which is a huge, huge asset to have.
Yeah.
So I think those are the things that set someone apart, that I can work with that because I see the value you bring because of these things.
Having the right attitude.
Absolutely.
What you're
the right
getting into.
attitude, the right perspective. You might not have the skill set that I need, but you have everything else and I can grow that and I can work with it. Does that make sense?
100%.
So I think that's important.
Yeah. Phil, what
What was the question?
Just what kind of traits do you look for in the people you surround yourself with, but not only that, but the people you bring on board and you're filling the seat on the bus?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's some general static, traits that you want to see in anybody that you're hiring, right? Like integrity, work ethic, um, uh, charisma. I think, those are all good traits to have. Obviously some of that, you're growing in those areas, but, I tend to gravitate towards sales. Positive attitude is huge.
He's very optimistic all the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I tend to, I don't see obstacles that often, when I'm in my main thing. And I think a lot of salespeople are like that. They don't see obstacles. They just see opportunity. And so, I tend to gravitate towards those people, and those people tend to be like pretty optimistic and positive. And, but it's a choice every day that we have to be positive and to be thankful. And, we can all fall into a ditch every once in a while in our brain. And so, ultimately, looking for folks too who have hustle, right? There are just some people who are ready to go, and you can't teach that. That to me is an X factor. Some people got it and some people don't.
Yeah.
And not that people can't grow, but there are just some people that have that drive. And if you want to be successful in business, you have to be driven.
Yeah. That's great. Kind of going into more into the business. Give me some backstory on, we've been in business for several years now. Why roofing? How did we start with roofing?
Yeah, great question. So,
really great question.
I've got 3 younger brothers. There's 4 of us. God bless my mother. She did an amazing job. Best mother ever. Shout out to my mom, Joy. So one of my brothers actually landed this roofing job with a friend of mine now, but he did this roof. This was long before I was in roofing, and he was shorthanded, and he asked me and my brothers if we'd come and help. So all 4 of us are on this roof. And I remember being on this roof and saying, this is the worst job ever. This is so hard. My back is killing me.
You were installing.
I was installing, and for those of you that don't know, I'm 6'4", and I'm like one of the largest humans ever. So I am not built for roofing, right? It's just, it's just not, doesn't work. And so I remember thinking, I never want to do this. This is just not good. So, God's sense of humor that he would bring that around. This was not premeditated. It wasn't premeditated. We didn't think this is something that we would ever be doing. And that's usually how it works, right? When you're living a life of faith, you don't know what's coming.
That's right.
Adventures with Jesus can be quite adventurous. And so it just kind of fell in our lap. At the time, I was sort of on a life sabbatical. We were really focused in ministry, and it was a season of faith financially. And we had actually accrued some debt, and we had been praying and seeking the Lord and saying, okay, what is next? And my brother started doing some odds and ends. He, apart from his day job, and he and I connected, and we actually started a little business called AP Builds. And we did that for, the idea was it's just going to be the 2 of us. We're going to go out. We're going to sell some jobs. We're going to do some basement remodels. We're going to do some odds and ends, some handyman work. And that's what we were doing. And we were working on this job. We were doing some framing, and we get a call from a friend who we knew, who said, hey, we're looking for somebody who would be interested in running a roofing company that specializes in insurance restoration. And we just felt a pull to have a conversation. And that basically evolved into the launch of Perimeter in Lynchburg. And we blew up. Our first year, we did literally 100% of our work was all paid for by insurance. There was a hailstorm that had hit back in 2016. And it was kind of funny because, we sort of introduced this idea to this area that insurance will pay for your roof if you have hail damage. And we got the cops called on us at least 3 times thinking that we were scamming them, scamming homeowners. No. And the cops would call, but we knew the cops. They knew us. We're from this area in Lynchburg. So they were like, oh no, they're totally legit. And then we would get insurance to pay for their roof. And so then, we had the tornado back in 2018 that ripped through Timberlake Road and went over into Link Road. And it was like Armageddon. Trees were laying on houses and on cars, and you couldn't even drive, down the streets. And, we capitalized on that opportunity. And when we went and talked to these homeowners, they wanted a one-stop shop, contractor. And at the time we were only doing roofing. So, we were like, hey, we'll do it. Like, we'll help. So we just jumped in, and that's how all the exteriors ended up getting added to our services. And ever since then, again, definitely we've evolved, because we haven't had a storm in this area since 18 of significance. And so we've evolved into becoming, a first-class retail organization offering services, high quality services to the community and homeowners.
That's great. Yeah. It's always cool hearing the beginnings, the baby steps of a company, especially going from installing a roof with your brothers to where we are today as like you said, one-stop shop for
who would have thought,
for all your needs. As we're wrapping up, I have a few more questions. What kind of Where do you see the industry going? What kind of trends do you see in the next couple of years taking off, whether it is just roofing or exteriors, interior, from your guys' point of view? What do you think?
I mean, the great thing about this industry is, everybody needs quality, professionals to be able to help them improve their homes, businesses, and so the need is always there. It's always, we've got, great job security in what we do. As long as we do what we say, and we fulfill our promise to, provide great service and to help people improve their homes, then I see great opportunity in the future, no matter what the economy is. And the cool thing about roofing, it's, everybody needs a roof, right? If you don't have a good roof, then everything else in the home is going to suffer, because water is very destructive. And so in its simplistic form, a roof is designed to just move water away from the house, right? And the roof and the gutters work together. And that's what we specialize in, is getting water away from the house. And we don't want it going in the house. And when it does, we're there to help, right?
But it's not just roofing though, like that's the thing. We've recently launched a remodeling and restoration division. And so I feel like that's going to kind of separate us from the competition, because not only do we do roofing and everything exterior, but now we can focus on interior work. And so we won't be affected by weather at times, right? Because you can actually do remodeling inside the home now. So we can do the whole entire package. And as we grow, obviously there's always going to be a need for something around the home. So when you focus on all the aspects of the services that we provide, we're going to be around, and we want to be the leading, provider for all those things. And so that's kind of our vision, and so we want to provide that with excellence.
That's great.
Yeah.
Last question. This is going to be more introspective for you guys. Here today, you guys have been through a lot of ups and downs, going through business, not only individually, but together. What advice would you give yourself 6, 7, 8 years ago as you guys were getting into this?
That's a loaded question.
I'm sure we could spend an hour talking about this.
Yes, that could be a whole topic on its own.
Well, the thing that comes to my mind is lighten up. If I had to give myself advice, lighten up and go have more fun.
Yeah.
Spend more time with family. Don't sweat the small stuff. Trust God more. That's definitely the advice I would give myself. Now, whether I would have listened to that advice that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the opposite of that, because I've been in the trenches with parenting and raising 3 amazing daughters, and I homeschooled them for 9 years. And so my life looked very different 8 years ago, but building that foundational work that is able to sustain who they are today is like my greatest legacy, right? And so I look at that, but at times I think I've lacked giving myself the grace needed to know that, hey, I'm doing a good job. Hey, I think it's going to be okay. Hey, like having that belief of you're doing okay, because the way that I'm wired is I just want to strive for excellence in all that I do, which I think is a great quality and a strength, but it also can become your most limiting weakness, right? That kind of prevents you from enjoying what you're doing, because I'm just constantly like, I want to do this and I want to do it better and this and that, you know? So it can consume you. So showing yourself grace in every season is so important, because it can kind of overshadow that present reality of where you're at.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I never would have thought that I would step into where I'm in currently, because at times I thought, there's no way I can do that, right? Like, no way, that's too big. But we can do that. And so it's like, just that reality of, hey, enjoy your current season because you don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
And really stewarding that well with discernment and wisdom, and enjoying that and being present, because down the road, you're going to, help run Perimeter, So
Who would have thought?
just, perspective. It's always about perspective and being reminded of, I'm stewarding this right now. I'm going to stay current in that and do that with excellence, and not keep, looking at this, because I've got to really steward this really well.
Wow.
And I think that's important.
That's great.
Basically, what we're saying is we're amazing. Trisha's
I
amazing.
didn't say that.
No,
Thank you.
but here's the thing: we are better together.
Yes.
And it's important as a married couple, because all married couples go through challenges, but it's important that the foundation of commitment to one another has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot compromise on the fact that we're going to choose to love each other unconditionally, no matter what we're going through or what God is calling us into.
Right.
Because we have those disagreements, but we're committed to work through it, to stay
we have been
facing
married
one another, right?
for almost 25 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we have 3 daughters, 22, 20, and 15 and a half.
Yeah,
Half
guys,
matters.
Stay away, guys.
But what matters is that no matter what we've gone through with ministry, church, business, marriage, or family, all of that, we have turned towards one another.
Mm.
And so when you turn away is where the disconnect and disengagement happens. And so always turn towards one another in every relationship, really. It's about conflict resolution. It's like turn towards one another and face it. Face the reality of where you're at. Have the hard conversation. You will get through it with grace and time,
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. This is awesome.
Thanks, Joe. You did awesome.
No,
man.
thank you guys.
Thank you for
This was
leading
so
this.
good.
This was great.
This is just amazing to hear you guys and hear your heart poured out on the table, literally.
Yes, I love this table.
All right.
This was so good. Well, for all of you on the outside, this is Inside the Perimeter Roof and Renovate. We thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.